Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is Friday, September the 1st, day 555 of Russia's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. And the world, frankly. The international rules-based order, every treaty, every agreement that we have, they've just spit on them and poured 250,000 troops over the border intent on the genocide of the Ukrainian people. Now, one of the tools that's in Vladimir Putin's toolkit is disinformation. And we have, for 20 years, underestimated the effectiveness of Russian disinformation campaigns. They've been waging an information war against the United States and our allies, and we have not responded because most of us didn't even know it was happening. I certainly didn't know it was happening. 10 years ago, I never heard the word troll. I didn't know what that was. It was inconceivable to me. Who would think that there was somebody in Russia that thought it would be a good idea to pay Russians to pretend to be Americans and sow discord in our social media? I never imagined it, but they did, and they have. And it's been very effective, my friends. Our problems at home have been amplified by this disinformation, and they're being amplified by it today. Now, here's the good news. The Ukrainian MOD recently secured some documents from the Kremlin, and this is what they say. Let's take a look at them together, shall we? So on August 25th, the dictator Putin had a meeting with the people in charge of disinformation in his place. And they agreed on the narratives, the bullshit lies that they were going to feed the American people to convince us that support for this emergent democracy was a bad idea. So let's take a look at what those lies entail. First, mass mobilization. So they want you to believe the lie that the Ukrainian armed forces have been neutralized, and in its desperation, the Ukrainian command here in Kyiv, because I am in Kyiv, guys, is doing mass mobilization, that they're going to grab everybody that they can off the streets, force them into vans, make them go to the front line, give them a gun, right? Now that shit's actually happening in Russia. We know last week at a Chinese market in Chelyabinsk that 400 migrants were rounded up and literally given guns and sent to the front lines. So this shit really is going on in Russia, right? That's one of the things about Russian disinformation. The truth is often that they're doing the things that they accuse others of doing. I live in Kyiv. I know lots of guys who are of military age that have legitimate exemptions and are not being rounded up. It's not a thing here. This bullshit, subject to mobilization regardless of gender, age, and state of health. Apparently the mobilization will concern minors. This is nonsense of the first order. Do not believe it. Let's take a look at number 2 of the Russian phony narrative. Disappointment of Ukrainian partners in the possibility of victory, including imaginary agreements. They actually use the word imaginary, about peace in exchange for territory, which will never happen. Fake political agreements, right? They say it, right? This is from the documents from the meeting with Putin. Fake political agreements, in particular, the fabrication of materials about the alleged secret agreement between Kyiv mayor and representatives of the Republican Party in the USA to support him in the upcoming presidential elections in Ukraine. You have got to be kidding me, right? Notice who their partners are, though. Notice who they implicate in this. Number 3, this is a big one for me because we see a lot of bullshit about this. The Ukrainian counteroffensive is unsuccessful. An increase in the number of burials of Ukrainian soldiers, in the example of cemeteries in large cities, the apparent lack of success, heavy losses. Now, look, nobody is saying that the Ukrainians aren't suffering losses. Every meter of their territory that they retake is soaked in the blood of defenders of this nation. It is hallowed ground. Make no mistake. But the reason these men and women are out there is because the Russians poured 250,000 troops over the border in their greed to steal the resources of this nation for the oligarchs at the top over there. That's why. Make no mistake, no one else is to blame for this war than the avarice of the United Russia Party in the Kremlin. That's who's behind it. This nonsense about the Ukrainian counteroffensive being unsuccessful, bullshit. Zaluzhny and the Ukrainian armed forces have repeatedly adjusted their tactics in the best way possible to preserve Ukrainian lives, to preserve NATO equipment, and to make advances. And the big breakthrough came yesterday in Verbove, where the first Sorovikin line has fallen and the next will fall shortly hereafter, because the dominoes are now falling. Make no mistake, the counteroffensive may have been slow, in your opinion, if it's not your kid on the front line. Number 4, total corruption. Guys, I cannot stress to you enough how the administration here in Kyiv is every day in the paper fighting the entrenched systemic corruption that's a holdover from the bureaucratic corruption of the post-Soviet times. They are fighting it I'm not saying it doesn't exist, quite the contrary. I'm acknowledging that it's a problem, but I'm also giving these guys credit for facing it head on and doing the right thing, which they do every day. Number 5, this is my absolute favorite. The beautiful life on the occupied territories. That life under Russia is so much better. Not that life under Russia has seen the ruble devalued by 50% in the last 12 months. Not that inflation is running at 60% in Russia. Not that in the occupied territories there are literally grape gangs of soldiers who do as they please under occupation. That civilians every day are made unalive under occupation. That children are ripped from their families and stolen and deported to Russia for God knows what purpose. No, that's not what's happening. It's a beautiful life under Russian occupation. You gotta be kidding me. So these are the 5 big disinformation narratives, Russian lies, that the Russians want you to believe to undermine your faith in the Ukrainians and their righteous cause here. Don't believe it. If you believe any of this shit, I want you to know you're not a free thinker who thought of this on your own. You're not. You're a fucking sheep who has bought in to Russian propaganda against your own interest, because nothing serves Russia better than a weak United States that is divided against itself and bickering among ourselves. It lets them have free reign in the world. Because we didn't intervene in Chechnya, we didn't intervene in Georgia, we didn't intervene when they took the Crimea in 2014. They are emboldened to this obscenity today in Ukraine. Now, I'm not blaming us. It's their doing. But we didn't help. And under the Budapest Memorandum, we had a requirement to help. We're helping now. Let's keep helping. Email me, DM me, and I will send you my email message templates for Congress, and you can email your representatives and let them know, continue the support for Ukraine. Thank you, my friends.